I've finally gotten around to recording part 3 of my series on keeping dwarf cuttlefish, sepia bandensis. Here they are as full-grown adults in their show tank. This tank is a 90-gallon tank, which I still have now. It currently houses my lionfish, but in the past it housed many things, including these dwarf cuttlefish. You can see this guy is spending his time crawling along the sand bed. They are of course capable of swimming and do use the whole tank. You'll note that he prefers to stay light over the sand, but as soon as he goes under the rock, he will change into a darker color to better blend in with his surroundings. Here you can see one cuttlefish in weight as the shore shrimp goes by. Again, these are not ghost shrimp despite the fact they look like them. They're full marine shrimp, so it was possible to just add a few into the tank and the cuttlefish would eat them at their leisure. You'll notice the cuttlefish waited for the shrimp to pass him. That way he could strike from behind, limiting any chance of the shrimp causing any injury to the cuttlefish. It's over very quickly and he will consume the shrimp quite fast. I did experiment a little bit feeding them frozen food. Here I'm feeding them uncooked shrimp on a feeding stick I created. While they would eat it, they weren't as excited as they were for the live shrimp. He's basically slowly eating it and somewhat trying to pry it off the stick. This is a nice shot of the valve underneath their eye, which they use for jet propulsion. Sorry, this part's a little bit shaky. I filmed this like 8 years ago and I had the camera in one hand and the feeding stick in the other. Here you can see the cuttlefish again trying to pull it off. I don't think I have it here where he gets it off. But the one issue I had with uncooked shrimp is they would only eat about half of it and then later release it, and then that would pollute the tank, unlike the live food which they would eat in one shot. Of course the frozen food was a lot cheaper, but you got to keep in mind that by this time I'd spent many months feeding them live food and they only had a few more months to go. So with that being the case, I think you're probably better off to just keep feeding them live shrimp and maybe feed them frozen on the weekend or something if you just want to have a chance to interact with them a little bit. You can see there's a nice red brain coral here. I did keep them in a basically mixed reef tank. You can keep them with corals, no problem. They don't pollute the water any more than fish. The only thing you can't keep them with is fish and other invertebrates, as they will consider them prey. It's a real nice close-up. They almost look like little aliens. Here you can see one swing about. Again, they would swim from time to time up top, but they did spend the majority of their time near the sand bed. Here's a little bit of the tank. Again, it was just simple corals inside. I covered the power heads with macroalgae. This was primarily because I didn't want them to get caught in the pumps. But it also provided them another spot they could perch and hang out in the macro. These guys certainly have a reputation for being super smart, but you got to keep in mind that their peers are snails and clams and things like that, not cats and dogs. You could interact with them a little bit, but mostly it was just observing them. Even compared to octopus, the cuttlefish were not as interactive. Here you can see one of the rare times I did get one to play with me. It would strike out at my finger, but that was really the extent of the interaction you'd have with them other than feeding them frozen food. Well, that's about it. Hope you enjoyed watching this series. I know cuttlefish have a reputation of being super hard to keep. The reality is they just have super short lifespans, and that's the real difficulty in keeping them, is letting them go after you spent so much time and effort and money keeping them, when they're just going to die of old age in a year or even less than that. Thanks for watching, and happy reefing.